I appreciate everybody joining today, whether it's your lunch hour, a little bit earlier than that, or you're getting your morning start on the West Coast. We got a bunch of folks in here today. Today we are talking about utilizing Safety HQ to prevent job site falls and help your slip, trips, and falls and all those items related to your safety program. So I appreciate you guys all joining. Just from looking at the list here, we have a lot of folks from a lot of different industries. So we might be a little bit more general than you could prefer on some of these items. But whether you guys use Safety HQ or not, hopefully we should be able to provide you some good ideas and strategies here today. Again, this is going to vary obviously quite a bit depending on what you guys are using from a safety platform and what you guys are doing from an industry perspective as well too. But at least to get us going, a couple of things first and foremost. I don't need to give you guys probably a ton of background, otherwise you guys might not be on this call. But slips, trips, and falls in general are a point of emphasis from OSHA. Depending on what state you're in, OSHA is going to act a little bit differently for you. Obviously, in California, it's always going to be very different for you than maybe say if like you're in Ohio, where I'm at today here. But nationally, for those that are kind of under the OSHA national umbrella, slips, trips, and falls, along with heat prevention or heat stress and awareness related to heat dangers and things like that, are two of the top, if not the two top main areas of focus and emphasis that OSHA has kind of focused on, not just in construction, but in all of the industries that they manage. Construction is obviously kind of always going to be up near the top of areas that they focus on, and kind of the harbinger of what we'll see them kind of focused on throughout other trades and specialties and industries as we go. But today in particular, we're going to be talking about fall protection in general. So we're not going to get into specifics. We've tried this before, and depending on what people are doing, if we get into specifics on what kind of PFAs you're using, what kind of harnesses you're using, strategies like that, that's going to depend a lot on what you guys are doing. So a lot of what we're going to focus on today is how can we make sure that fall protection is a vital part of our training process, it is a vital part of our safety program, and how can we follow up to make sure that these items are fulfilled on a daily and regular basis. Again, I'll be using Safety HQ here as kind of the guide for a lot of this. However, we will kind of talk and discuss how these items can be used outside of your specialty and what have you too. So with that said, we'll kind of get going in here. I hope you guys can all see my screen. We're on Safety HQ here, kind of reviewing a few different things. A quick background, this isn't a Safety HQ ad per se. If you guys do want to see some more information on Safety HQ, you should get a follow-up email or just reach out to us at foundationsoft.com or mysafetyhq.com. It's up to you. Happy to give you a personalized demo. We can get into the actual details of this stuff as well also. But out of the gate, how can we emphasize fall protection throughout our industries, right? This is the one big thing. Our largest client base, especially in Safety HQ, is roofers, right? Makes up our biggest chunk. We have folks in every single specialty. It's not to say it's not a concern in other areas that we go to, but especially with roofing, I have talking with a lot of our clients. The biggest thing is breaking down the barriers for our employees, right? They feel that they can do anything and everything, right? These guys are superheroes in a lot of ways. For having done it for a little bit, I can tell you, I get it, right? It is a really difficult job that puts, and I'm using that trade in particular. I know you guys are all in different trades that require a lot of demand and physical exertion, what have you. But, from my experience in roofing and what have you, these guys all feel like they're superheroes, right? They can do whatever they need to do. They can go up there. They can get things done faster, especially when it's hot up there on those roofs with asphalt, or not asphalt, with the dark shingles and those colored shingles and things like that. You're right in the middle of the sun as we're kind of coming down from the summer season. Guys want to get their job over with and they want to get moving. So the first thing that we need to do is, maybe before folks are actually up on the roof or, in other areas, whether they're working from an aerial lift or whether you guys are working at heights within an industrial building, it could be 1,000 different things. First thing that you guys need to do, and I say this in every one of the discussions, is begin with a toolbox talk, right? If you guys aren't doing toolbox talks now, it needs to be a regular area of emphasis for you. That is the first thing that we need to do to kind of break down that barrier of people feeling that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. If they know that safety is part of the, part of the priority, it is a focus area for your business as a whole. That will get the teams to take things a little bit more seriously. If they know, hey, if you just mention something once a month, once every 2 months, yeah, you need to do this, you need to be careful of that, they're going to laugh it off. They're not going to take it very seriously. If they know that they're going to have to sit there for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to discuss a toolbox talk every Monday, every Tuesday, whatever it might be, even daily, depending on what you do, it's not as funny anymore to kind of laugh it off, make a joke, what have you. The team knows that it is an area of emphasis for the company. They know that whether they want to admit it or not, and they're not going to admit it, they know that you care about them. They know that they care about safe work. And again, probably not going to get your team to admit it, at least from the younger guys or the average group. But people want to work with safe coworkers and peers. Folks that are going to put them at risk or put them in danger is something they certainly don't want to deal with. Again, they might not be vocal about that, and if your group is great, but I think opening up that door and making safety a regular conversation through something like a toolbox talk is a really, really critical aspect to make sure that the team is on top of what they need to do and that they realize that safety is a priority throughout your business. So how can we do that, right? For Safety HQ, we got a lot of tools for managing and organizing toolbox talks. I'll pick this particular item discussing fall protection rope grabs. Great. Everything we have is available in both English and Spanish. We can assign out the toolbox talks in advance. We can schedule them immediately. We can create our own toolbox talks if we have some really good content that we want to review. Maybe we have, heaven forbid, we have a near miss and we want to share that with the team. Those are the most effective toolbox talks or lessons that we can share with our group as a whole because it's relevant. It hits home. If we have a near miss, it's not a situation in which we're pointing somebody out and laughing at, how they probably overlooked something or what have you. They realize how serious something could have been, and we can use that as a really impactful moment to drive something home across the group. So again, you can create your own toolbox talks. We have 250 in here available in English and Spanish. We can schedule these out, or we can send them immediately. I can submit this to my crew. Again, the first step is actually getting them to do this, right? So if fall protection is an area of emphasis, we do this through a toolbox talk and regularly discuss this with the team so that they're comfortable with this. In this case, I've gotten a notification that I need to discuss suspended access equipment and tiebacks. Great. I use my big yellow button. Again, this is Safety HQ specific. We want to make this as easy to use as possible. Hit next. Foreman can sign off on this. Their crew can sign off on this. Depending on what accounting system you guys are using, this can tie in directly to that as well too. So we have this all tied in automatically. Great. We hit submit and it's taken care of. Now, if you're not using something like Safety HQ, if you guys are using another software, great. Make sure that you have somebody dedicated to this. You don't need to have a dedicated safety manager. If you do, all the better. You have so many more tools at your disposal. But if you have somebody doing safety and a few other things, okay, then you need to at least make sure that this is on somebody's to-do list. Scheduling out toolbox talks is great. Giving the foreman tools to review fall protection material and stuff like that, also great. None of this matters unless you are going to follow up. If they do those toolbox talks and they go into a binder in their truck and nobody ever looks at them again, they're not going to take it seriously. They're not going to take the training or the discussion very seriously when they're out in the field. And they're not going to, comply with these things and stay on top of what they need to do on a regular basis. Maybe you have some foremen that really believe strongly in it that'll still continue doing it. But the biggest and most important thing is that we can regularly update and check and see how the team's doing. In Safety HQ, that's made extremely easy. We can see who's done these, what dates in which they've done them, and we can easily notify the folks that need to get these completed. Awesome. I always recommend an incentive program, whether it's tickets to your local sporting event, putting them in a raffle. Make this, at least out of the gate, get the team engaged some way, somehow to make sure that they have what they need. Fantastic. We have tools to manage and track all those. Even if you're just starting and you want to get this done by paper, make sure you collect those on a weekly basis. Make sure you review those. If you see people with kind of bogus signatures or goofy names on there, call those out. You can't let those things fly, because if they know that they're not going to be taken seriously, they are not going to follow through with this on a regular basis. Again, you know your crew better than others, but some of the best ways to do that is through an incentive program to make sure that they're either entered into a raffle for tickets or what have you. But this all begins with making things nice, simple, and easy, whether it's through email. Make sure it's part of their regular routine. Again, in Safety HQ, we can schedule those out, make it really simple and easy for the folks to get notified. But if you're not using something like a Safety HQ, make sure that this is accessible to the team. We're not taking them out of their day-to-day routine. We're making it simple and easy, and then you'll get a much higher return rate on things like a toolbox talk as you progress as well. For Safety HQ, these are automatically organized, saved by project, saved by individual. All of the organization and collaboration is key. Again, that's going to be more so on the back end. Obviously, do what you can. I don't know what your administrative or admin side looks like for organizing all of this information. The better organized it is initially. If there is an accident or an injury, the more tools you have to review this later. Should I ever need to present something like that from a toolbox talk perspective in Safety HQ, I have all of the tools I need to share those documents or what have you. But again, make sure they're tied in. Make sure you either have something checked off to show that certain employees have been complying, as well as foremen. So this is bottom down. There is more and more requirements from general contractors now, especially if you're doing any kind of prevailing wage jobs or government jobs or things like that, that you are taking care of your safety business in-house. There's a bunch of reasons to do this as well. You can obviously, number one is the safety and priority of your employees. It's hard enough to get folks as it is. You don't want to be losing any to injury. You don't want to be losing any to folks that feel unsafe and don't want to work with folks that they feel like they're going to put them at risk. And then second is lowering your experience modification rating, your workers' comp ratings, and premiums, things like that. There are some significant advantages to staying safe, regardless of what you're doing. So if you're having a hard time, if you need some additional tools like the Safety HQ, those are all aspects that can help you kind of justify that, and more than often offset that expense or save you money as you go too. So we talked about toolbox talks briefly. Every job site is different, right? Whether you're in roofing, whether you're, like I said, I was just talking to somebody this morning that does industrial fire suppression, fall protection is huge for them. In their case, every job site that they work in is going to look a little bit different. So doing a regular JHA or site inspection is going to be really critical on that as well too, right? I wouldn't expect any of your individual employees to look at a new job site and review all of the potential hazards. That's just not something that they're going to make part of their everyday task. But if you start doing something along the lines of a JHA or a JSA, something along those lines, you'll be surprised at how much your average, so to speak, everyday employee is going to be mindful of all of the things around them. Again, you want a JHA or a JSA to be part of their tasks, part of their routines. We have in Safety HQ, we have a lot of those same reporting capabilities to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. This is all saved and organized automatically for them, and this is also going to be PDF'd very similar to what we saw earlier as well too. Great, you have all those tools, but the big piece is make this part of their regular day-to-day. If they know that, when they're working on a new job site, the first thing that they're going to do is look around at different hazards and be aware of their surroundings. Even if they absorb 50% of what the foreman's discussing with them on a JHA, you are still leaps and bounds better than you were before. There are a ton of things that can be avoided by simply reviewing each job site, project, whatever it is, and discussing the safety hazards as we go. So in this case, I'm going to do another JHA through Safety HQ. Big yellow button, pick my project coming out of my accounting database. Great. I'm going to identify the tasks that we're dealing with today, set up and load of materials, focus on maybe fall protection. I'll throw in environmental as an example too. You'll see this is only going to show in fall protection and environmental hazards that we might be dealing with. Now, in this case, this is specific to Safety HQ. This is only showing the controls related to the hazards that we're dealing with. In this case, we're focusing on fall protection, obviously. So the team is going to be really focused on what they need, what they need to pay attention to from these perspectives. Separate items, I see things like, hey, there's we're working outdoors and there's a big bee's nest that we can't get to at this point. We can't remove it for some reason. Just be aware of these particular hazards on the job site. In my case, we're able to limit to only the things that the team needs to focus on. If you are doing this on paper, if you're doing something like this outside of Safety HQ or outside of a software package, limit this to just what the team needs to focus on, right? So as much as you might want them to fill out a really large template, it can be easy for them to pencil whip this because there's a whole bunch of things that are just really generic on there as a whole. You don't have the skills or the tools that you need through like a Safety HQ. It's going to be tougher, but really do whatever you can. If this is paper, if this is email, to keep the team as focused on only what's relevant for them on the job site. So that way they can really be locked in on what matters for them as they make a change. So in this case, I'll hit next. I can take photos. Those are really mindful. If you have your foreman walk through the job site before they have this conversation with employees, this is absolutely critical. They can show those actual hazards. It makes a huge difference in resulting in reduced accidents, incidents, what have you, because they actually see these items, and whether it's subconsciously or consciously, when they walk by that particular area that's going to produce a fall protection risk, they see that and they are mindful of it, and they think a little bit more about what they're doing, how they're behaving. Maybe not 100% to what we described in the JHA and what we talked about as a team, but they're going to be a little bit more mindful, which is half the battle as you go from there. So in here, we can take photos from our iPhone, Android, tablet, whatever we're using the app on. We can mark those up, draw circles, what have you, and then we can collect signatures like we kind of addressed before. So again, a lot of you guys out there say, hey, I might not do a JHA regularly. We only do it on the jobs that we have to. I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend making this part of your routine. When you go to work those jobs for folks that require JHAs, you're going to be more prepared. And if you do this on a day-to-day basis, the team is going to be mindful of those hazards as they go. You will see a reduced risk of injury and a lower risk of, or a lower count of accidents, counts, near misses, things along those lines too. So when the team's working safely and effectively, it is going to, believe it or not, we see a 15% increase in productivity on the job site as well. I know people see this as a hindrance and it's going to slow them down from actually completing what they need to do on the job site. If they're working safely, it's a lot less time that you have to deal with all of the repercussions of that as a whole too. So saving money, keeping the team safer, all that, and you're working more productively as you go too. There's a whole bunch. If this was a Safety HQ demo, we would get into equipment inspections and job site inspections, things like that too, how we can use corrective actions to identify site walk hazards, things along those lines. We're not going to do that in this particular incident today because the focus really is on fall protection and how we can improve that, throughout your safety program as a whole. So for now, we'll kind of pass on this. If you do want more information on how we can do site inspections, how those correlate directly to corrective actions and leading indicators, we have a lot of tools in here that we can do that for you. Happy to discuss those, but probably not the time and place for this today. So great. SDSs, again, we have 2.4 million of those in here, probably not as critical for the fall protection item today. So we will be probably skipping over that as we go too. Once we get into lessons and certifications, continued training is critical, guys, too. I know you might have some certified, maybe I saw some safety manager titles on this call today. Even if you are certified, it might not be a bad idea to have somebody else come in and do a training every once in a while. The one thing that I hear from our clients more than often is, you know what, yeah, I'm certified to do all these trainings. We can do all those. In Safety HQ, we can deliver those trainings electronically, remind them to do these. They can watch videos. We can require them to take a quiz, things along those lines. That's all really great. That is all continued education that we need to make sure that the team stays on top of. How can we make sure that this education is going to stick? Occasionally having another voice matters. What I've seen, and I thought this was a really good idea, we've had ownership from some small companies. Maybe, it's been a while since the owner's been up on a lift or been up on a roof or has had to put the harness on for whatever reason. Having them actually take 10, 15 minutes and stop by a job site and discuss that. And just a different voice makes all the difference. If it's the same voice over and over again, there's nothing I can really do here other than utilizing these tools. But if you're not using Safety HQ, think about that. See if you can have ownership, come down and give a training. You can provide them all the content. It's been a while, but they know that's important. And if they see somebody like an owner or a president come down and do a discussion with them on a job site or things like that, they know it is a priority from the top down. They know that this is serious. And again, they might listen a little bit more when they see the head honcho around the site too. So if you are a safety manager, again, what you're doing is critical. I'm not suggesting that you stop that by any means. Continue your ongoing education, but considering a different voice once in a while, whether it is somebody like an owner, I thought that was a great idea, or you hire a consultant or something like that to come in and train and give them a different audience, can really be helpful for the team as well also. Tracking and managing and staying on top of those certifications is critical as well too. This is a really good indicator of how much you guys care and focus on a lot of these attention items, right? So if they see that their fall protection item is expired, again, that's going to be a clue, not so subtly, that it's not really important for my company as a whole. They're not even keeping me up to date on these certifications. It's not important to them. So being mindful of that, staying on top of that. If you say, hey, you have a training expiring in the next 30, 60, 90 days, they know that not only is this important to them, but they're staying on top of it and keeping them focused on what they need to do. Again, Safety HQ has plenty of tools in here where you can run some things and see who's expiring on what trainings in the near future. You can run this by crew. You can pull up photos of certifications. You can share certifications here through QR codes, produce certificates, things along those lines too. You don't have to have a Safety HQ. This is going to save you a lot of time and money, but if you're not ready for something like this too, make sure you put something in place, whether it's Excel at the very most basic levels, whatever it is, whatever works for you. Make sure that you are staying on top of this and you are forthright and proactive on making sure that trainings, especially related to fall protection today, are discussed with the team before they expire. If you let trainings expire for your team, or if you don't remind them, if you're not on top of them, they are going to know that this is not a priority for the business. This is not a priority for them. It really does trickle down, and you can see that being active on the job sites when they're not following through a lot of the fall protection things you're trying to train them on. Having a regular system is absolutely critical. From that perspective, you will see that trickle down all the way to the teams out in the field too. Again, Safety HQ, we can do automatic notifications. We can do trainings and certifications from outside the system. We can add them from the field. There's a bunch of tools in here. You will not let a certification fall through the cracks if you're using something like this. But whatever it is, being proactive on certifications is absolutely critical. I know we're kind of coming in the last 5 minutes, guys, here, so we'll leave some time for questions. I see 2 or 3 in the chat here. If you have any questions, feel free to share them. Again, if you did want to connect, whether you're interested in Safety HQ or you just want to have some discussions on best practices with the team, we're happy to help. Reach out to me at any time. I'll actually just throw my email right in here, edv@foundationsoft.com. I'm happy to help you. 800-246-0800. We can help you from there too. I'm happy to do a one-on-one demo or just discuss, hey, I'm running into some issues. After every demo I always get 1 or 2 folks that say, yeah, probably not ready for a Safety HQ right now, but I was just wondering if you had some ideas on how we can, be better at X, Y, and Z. I'm happy to talk about individual circumstances as we go too. I've been doing this for a while too. We can certainly help you out in a lot of ways too. So, taking photos is critical. We'll probably skip over some of these items too. Even from the incident reporting, I'll probably skip that for today too. The last thing that I would mention would be equipment and maybe documents. Having readily accessible training materials and maybe safety manuals is critical so that the team can look up things as they need. Having manuals and reference guides available on the actual equipment item is critical. So if this is a piece of equipment that they don't use regularly, they use it every once in a while whenever they're doing this type of job or what have you, make those tools readily available. Provide them something like a quick reference guide. Maybe they're not going to go through the whole user's manual or owner's manual, for a particular aerial lift, if you point out some areas of emphasis and give them some quick reference items to make sure that they're utilizing, they might review those on a more regular basis. Now, the best way to do that and the best way to keep them up to date is through regular equipment inspections. Again, if it's something like an aerial lift, we can track when those items are due for inspection, when they were last inspected, what job site they're assigned to, what employee they're assigned to, things along the lines like that. We can do that all through Safety HQ. But regardless of how you're doing it, make sure the team is familiar with that piece of equipment. If just going up there is the only thing they're doing, they're overlooking a whole bunch of things that that could cause an injury, accident, that can pose a fall protection risk. So I know what OSHA standards are, and especially when it comes to equipment, you might not be able to get to it on a regular basis. I'm not telling you need to be perfect on these types of things, guys, but what I will tell you is that if you do regular inspections on pieces of equipment, especially items that they're not using on a regular basis, it does make a huge difference. We see a 40% lower risk of near misses and accidents for folks that are doing these things on a regular basis related to their equipment items. So again, it focuses them to look at things that they might otherwise overlook or not pay as much attention to. If this is on a foreman basis, great. If this is on an individual basis and employee basis, even better. But continuing to make those up to date, keeping them focused, and showing that you are reviewing their actual equipment overviews and inspections are going to be critical to make sure that they're reviewing those items as well too. So again, however you guys do this, I've seen this done a lot of the ways outside of Safety HQ. There are a lot of tools, but make sure that you have all of your equipment items listed. Review when they were inspected. This is a huge protection asset if you guys ever do incur a fall, an accident, something along those lines. But more than anything, it's keeping the team focused and showing that you do care about these items and you're up to date on these as you go too. So that's pretty much what I got for you today, guys. I got 3 or 4 questions for you. We might go over the time a hair, but I will I'll answer those, and I see some more coming in as we go. But if you do have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Just feel free to reach out to us and we can go from there. But the first question is, this is from Jeremiah. It looks like, I'm kind of paraphrasing Jeremiah, but I think I understand what you're trying to ask here. So my team is really not good as far as paying attention on fall protection items. It becomes repetitive and redundant. How can I make this new and fresh for folks as we discuss this on a regular basis? So that's a great point, right? I look at that as 2 things when you say that, Jeremiah. Number one, if this has become routine for them, a lot of that is sunk in. That is going to be really valuable for them. If safety is routine, you are already way above where you need to be. That is really beneficial. The folks might not take that as seriously as they should and as much as you'd like. Totally understand. I can see how that's frustrating, and there's some things I'll discuss from there. However, if you're making it a routine, that is critical. The folks that are going through this on a regular basis are still absorbing something. So even if you think that they're seeing some similar things over and over again, they are still absorbing it. They still know that it's an area of emphasis. To your other point, how can we keep this fresh? How can we keep this focused? A lot of things. Have employees read off toolbox talks. They're responsible for discussing that toolbox talk for the day. Physical demonstrations, right? They love it. If they see somebody like the safety manager, or like I even said previously, like an owner or something like that, strapping on the harnesses, the PFAs, whatever, that really gets them engaged, right, guys? So if they see that, if you're a safety manager out there today, have that discussion with your ownership and say, how can we get this team more engaged? I think you being involved in something like this would certainly get them revitalized. That would be absolutely huge, guys. You'd be surprised at how much that is. And then, it goes without saying, the incentivization program is always there too. So if you do regular quizzes, and knowledge comprehension tests, whatever, or if you just have them participating on a regular basis and put them in there, great. You know what? They're going to be paying a lot more attention from a safety perspective if they know that they can win some Browns tickets, or, well, maybe not Browns tickets. In Cleveland, that's probably not a big ticket right now, but I don't know, whatever it is, hockey tickets, Indian tickets, a nearby concert. Incentivization, guys, even if it's a gift card to lunch, really, really goes a long way. I hate to say it, but that's just kind of how people work. So I went a little long with that question, so I'm just going to answer Mary's question here. For Stacy, Darian, and Todd, I apologize. I'll try and reach out to you guys after the call and get you your questions answered. But for Mary here, she's asking, thank you for the presentation so far, blah, blah, blah. How can I go ahead and discuss this with ownership to make safety more of an emphasis? This is something I see all of the time, right? Whether it's getting funding for something like a safety HQ, whether it is funding for an incentive program, like you think, how can we get some more money for tickets, things like that. Focusing on, there's a lot of ways that we can discuss and monetize safety, right? But I'll give you a couple of bullet points and a couple of talking points just to get you started. Number one, it is a huge employee retention factor. This keeps teams engaged, it keeps employees there. When you look at this as an area to keep focused for employees that might otherwise be leaving the business because, again, either they feel unsafe, whether they express it or not, employee retention is one of the biggest benefits that we see from a healthy safety program that is funded appropriately. Obviously, the other side of that would be reduced risk of losing employees for an extended period of time due to injury or accident. Even if they're moved or they have to work, change work responsibilities because of some things like that, it's hard enough to find good folks. You really cannot afford to lose them to an accident. A safety prevention program or safety and injury prevention program can help keep those folks working and active. Again, we talked about the benefits of production actually increasing from a safety program. There's some really cool studies out there that I'd be happy to share with you if you had some questions on those. Again, lowered costs of workers' comp, costs of accidents. Heaven forbid we get into OSHA fines and things like that can really cripple a business. And OSHA can actually go at owners directly, so it can hit them, outside of the business, and they can be held individually responsible on these items as well too. Those are a little bit more scarier tactics as we go from there. I don't like to kind of discuss those at large. Everyone is aware of the risks when it comes to those items. But the biggest thing that I've seen is, as far as an engagement perspective, is employee retention, safety, and keeping them working out in the field. So those are the ones that people don't think about often. So really cool point to bring up to those groups as we discuss from there too. So that's all we have time for today as far as the questions piece. Again, for those folks that I did not get to your questions, I will get to you via email here. But thank you so much for joining me today. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And if you did want to get into Safety HQ in a little bit more detail, I used it kind of just as an example today. I didn't want this to be a Safety HQ demo per se, but if you did want one of those, give us a shout and I'd be happy to give you some time individually and we can go through that. But thank you everybody for your time today. And if there's anything else I can help you with, just give us a shout via email or call. And it's been great speaking with you. Have a safe day. Take care. Bye-bye.